So we'll start now. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. As most of the participants might be knowing, this is the third session in this series and second session from Pradeep. So it is a continuation of the previous session that he did. For the ones who have joined newly today, I will just give you a brief introduction of what we're trying to do. So through this Train the Trainer program, we are basically trying to bridge the gap between the expectations in the industry and the course curriculum that is set for the students, so that they'll know the industry applications along with knowing the theoretical concepts. So that is how we started this session. And we have with us Pradeep Narayanamurthy, who is the head of data engineering at IDP, which is an edutech company, and he's a part of Tamil Nadu NASCOM Analytics Core Committee, and he's been an active contributor to NASCOM's initiatives. He was part of recent a panel discussion also that we conducted for our member companies. So he's an active contributor both in industry as well as in academic circles. And to just give a brief introduction about him, he also talks about data transformation, data analytics, data governance, and artificial intelligence. He's also a D&I leader and has done a lot of diversity programs across India and Europe. And he's an ardent football fan as well. And he goes by his favorite quote from Sir Robert Baden-Powell, which says, "Try to leave this world a little better than you found it." I think this is one of the initiatives that aligns with that quote as well. Just to give a brief, he has also done a session a couple of weeks back on data analytics, which was sneak peek and brief discussion on generative AI and responsible AI. Today, he's going to talk about the next or the second session in this, which is unearthing the true potential of data management and analytics. Over to you, Pradeep. You can give a brief introduction of this and you can continue. And just for everyone's info, this session will be for approximate 45 minutes, and Pradeep will take questions at the end of the session for 10 to 15 minutes if you have any. And he's an expert in both applications. Um, he's an expert in both applications and anything related to data engineering and otherwise. So we will keep the session open for questions at the end. In case somebody has a question in between the session also, please feel free to raise your hands. We can take a question in between also. Over to you, Pradeep.
Hey, Kavya, thank you so much. Good morning, all. Session. Last call, we've been doing a lot of overview on generative AI, especially support data democratization. So today, the idea is to go to the next level, especially to focus on the foundational models. I think everyone in this meeting would have at least used one of the model, right? Like you would have used it for chat GPT or for chatbots. You would have used it for creating the large data sets and giving some insights to it, out of it, producing insights. You would have used a lot of foundational models. Multiple models has been put in Llama, right, Bard. It's multiple things. So I thought to cover some bit of that. So that's the first part. And then how can you customize that model that you take, and few of those tools that could really help you. And lastly, fit into your use cases. I thought of doing something like that. And I will start with it. And if you have any questions, please ask Dhananjay. Happy to do that. And also, as Kavya mentioned, we'll have a final 10 minutes dedicated for Q&A. Hope the screen is visible. Fine. So, reason I picked up SLM, again, LLM is your large language model. SLM is small language model, but words are deceptive. Being small, it does not mean it can't, we can't undermine it. So how the market, the technocrats define a small language model is when you have parameters less than 20 billion. 20 billion. A billion is a big number already. 20 billion, they call it as a small language model. Reason I picked up this topic is it's catching up the market. If you've attended any of these sessions across, people have been talking about what a small language model can do. So I'm just going to cover that in today's topic. As I said, small means you can't undermine it. It has all the potential what a large language model can do. In terms of performance, in terms of security aspects, everything is in line with whatever we talk about the very large language models of GPTs, it can still do it. So one example I would like to quote is Mistral. It is a small language model with 7 billion parameters. If you remember, I would have called out what are the parameters, temperature in last meeting, and just giving. So when you want to generate something out of the model, you need to set some variables, right? You will have your target variables. So everything is driven through these parameters, and temperature is the key part. I would have called out an analogy, putting something onto a refrigerator or microwave oven so that you get the desired output. So we call these are the two important acronyms. So we will be calling out multiple times. So Mistral is a 7 billion small language model. It was able to outperform Llama. That's your Llama 3. So all the benchmarks prove that a small language model on any given day could always outperform a large language model. So reason I'm going to focus on this is that it is tangible. One can easily do it. I'm going to tell a few of those tools that you can easily test it. So that's the reason I'm covering it. And three key benefits out of this is it's versatile in sense, as I mentioned. You can quickly build your chatbots. You can quickly build your knowledge graphs. And then with that, you can also put in your labeled data into it. And you can do classifications. You can do any kind of mining out of it. So that's the best part of it. And you can also customize your prompts and do it. So that's what I'm calling it as a versatile applications. Second is domain specific. I touched base little in the last meeting. What is a domain specific? It's nothing but if you are into a legal department and you want to do something to handle plagiarism. So, for example, final year students submit thesis to it. How would you ensure that it's not hacknet? In that case, you can use it. And you being someone in a finance team, you want to automate your ledgers, you want to validate your ledgers for last 20 years, you can customize, you can have your own finance bot, which could help you. And think about it, you have a large data, and then you want to do some prescriptive and analytics, which means you want to get the next best actions, you can use it. So that's what I'm calling it as a domain-specific customization. Third one is an interesting one, Indic or vernacular. I touch base even a particular example in the last session, where in Singapore, the e-governance started to use it. Whenever you talk in either in a Mandarin or a Mandarin mix of English, the chatbot was able to understand it. It's a linguistic bot. We call it as a Singlish. It had a combination of Mandarin and English together, saying that as Singlish bots. So you can do a lot of things. So any idea, as anyone in the group has heard about Indic or vernacular GPTs that been built in India? Any guesses? I'm not able to see the chat. People can put it in the chat if you had a chance to look into it. So the famous Indic or a vernacular one, okay, is Bharat GPT. So this is being built by
There is a
you know,
response. Kutram AI.
sorry.
There is a response from
Okay.
Suki saying Kutram AI.
Yes. Tirukural AI, a lot of things are there. So Bharat One is one of the most revolutionizing GPT that has been done by our government, especially. So we need to validate it. So it had four parameters basically. Four sizes. It starts from a basic version until uh, 20. We call it as a small model, and then it has a large model which had 40 billion. So this can support up to 22 recognized official languages, which means you can throw in your prompts in any. Sorry. I think people have to go on mute.
There is no one on unmute. Not sure where the sound is
Can
coming
we
from.
mute rest of the participants?
I think everyone is already on mute. Yeah. They have not been enabled to talk yet, Pradeep. So we continue. We'll see if there's any disturbance further.
So it can support 22 languages, as I said. If you put in a prompt in Odia language, it can still understand. So reason I picked Odia language is uh, they they pronounce B as B. Basant, I had a very good friend from Odisha. So he was working with me in Switzerland. I had another friend called Vasant. He used to always call him as Basant instead of V. So initially they used to fight because we get normally angry when someone calls our name by different. This Indic LLMs are a fantastic part which can understand the vernacular one. I just wanted to call out one recent example. I had a chance of attending a exec leader meeting last week, which was good for some technocrats. So there was a speaker from India Mart, India Mart. So the chief product officer has built in a vernacular chatbot to support people. So India Mart is a B2B and a B2C site which people connect for multiple services. One classic example I saw, right? When people started to type bleaching powder, and similarly, there was a use case from the Policy Bazaar. So the Saurav Tiwari was the chief technology officer. So both were presenting it. So this small language model, especially they built it using Mistral, it was able to understand the vernacular. So you would have seen throughout India, wherever you go, the puncture shops, the spelling, people will write in every different format, PUNCTHAR, whatever format, but these machines are trained in such a way so that it could understand even the vernacular part. That's a beauty behind having an Indic LLM. So people in this group, I would encourage them to make use of the foundation models and build these Indic ones. So that's what I thought of calling it here. So this photo that you see is a famous kid, so which we had 20 years ago. So still, it is a devil. I will call it as the small language model. Reason is right. It is quite easy for you to work. So just make a note of it. There is a online tool to evaluate it. It's called as MSTY. MSTY. M for MS for Microsoft TY. You can hit on your browser and you can register it, and it allows you to operate with 3 of SLMs or LLMs or mix of it. I tried to use Google's Bard, ChatGPT, which OpenAI, and Llama. I was able to toggle between it. It works seamlessly. Even though you have a CPU, you can work on that. It's a fantastic one. I would urge people to use that tool and make use of it. It is a really good one. You can put in prompts. Reason I'm calling it is right. I'm going to focus on most on that. So this is the overview. I'm going to talk about subsequently about customization. So this is a foundational one. Otherwise, when I move on to the next things, it might be a little bit tricky. So, any questions before I get on to the other one?
continue, Pradeep. In case there are questions, they can raise their
So,
hand or drop in the chat box.
no. You take a foundational model, whatever I said now, you can pick any of those foundational models, and from there, how you can customize it. So that's what I'm going to focus. First is tokenization. Any large language or small language model is based on tokens. Without tokens, nothing. Input, it's a token. Output, it is a token. So I would ask you to go and look into the OpenAI token cost. It is a cost centric, right? So whenever you put in a prompt, it gets, for example, you ask the machine saying that what is the best ice cream I would. So how many of you know what is the favorite ice cream of US president? At the end of the session, I can ask that question. You can checking with any of these LLMs. So you can ask it. So the entire text gets into different tokens. Normally, a word would be multiplied into 3 by 4, which means so you sent in 4 letters. A token is 3. So first token is 3, and then it pairs up. Reason is right. Being a generative AI, so it would, when you put in a prompt and you ask to create something, a content, it will generate the sequence. So that's a beauty behind it. So a token plays a vital role. It could be both your input token and output token. Input token, normally, I think you would have seen these encoders. We use the concept of encoding. So you would have a byte pair for text, and for visual, you use either a BERT or VAT. So you can go and check. So all these things are put as a vectors. Vectors are nothing but whenever you put in your input, either through a text or an image or an unstructured, the machine to understand these encoders converted. It's a standard thing, however, whatever you see it in your electronics, nothing different. So that's the first part. So you need to be mindful how to handle the tokens. And second one is semantics. Semantics is nothing but giving a context. For example, what ice cream I could have. So the semantic here is I'm going to have an ice cream. So it should be a meaningful. Okay. How you would embed is that to the ice cream, you could say that this is a favorite. This is a favorite of the United States president. He likes vanilla with a strawberry. So you can put it. So it gives a meaning. So any token, right, can any prompt that you put in can give you a right output when you have a context to it. Context is nothing but you learn something unless and until you get a context, right? Without that, you can't reproduce things. I know a famous, so people who read books, right? Normally, you won't get the context. I was trying to read an hyperfocus that is from a famous writer called Bailey. I did halfway through, still I don't get the context. Right? Either I don't have a context in what reading. So context plays a vital role. Semantics. So you can look into it. Any doubt I can address it. So embedding. So embedding is nothing but putting something while you customize. For example, someone's thought about a Tirukural or a Kutram, right? So you embed something into it so that it could give a context. For example, Tirukural AI, which was built by the startup TN, so the Tamil Nadu part of. So what they have put in is right. You put in a prompt, so it reaches to through those codes, and it gives that's a context. For example, I need to know something about education. So Tirukural is a fantastic book for you to know about education, right? So giving a context. That's how the embedding works. And important part for you to be successful to generate content is prompt. As I said, these models are always comes under a section called pre-trained. GPT is nothing but the pre-trained transformer models. And that you have a turbo model. Turbo is nothing but how in the car they give you. So they take some best parts of a petrol engine and then some best parts of a diesel engine, they amalgamate it. So that's a turbo. So you will have a foundational model with a pre-trained, and then always you can add a turbo to it. So GPT 3.5, and then there is a turbo 3.5, then it goes to a 4, and then on the 4 they do a turbo. So how it became successful is purely by prompts. So prompts are the core thing, because in last session I would have called out these pre-trained models don't need you to do a training because it has been already trained on a large data sets. There have been an unsupervised training happened, and that is enough for you to generate the content. So the prompt plays a vital role. Prompt is nothing but how do you put a input, so that's a tokens, it gets converted into a token, and then how do you get a right output? Getting a right output is key. So tokenization, embedding, prompt engineering are fundamental to customize any foundational or fundamental model. So any questions, just let me know. And then the last part is knowledge graphs. If you would have trained any of these models, you would have already got into a problem called hallucination, which means you're not getting the right output. So I was asking a question to ChatGPT, right? Who would be the president of United States in 2032? And it was trying to give some answer based on the training. So saying it would be Trump. I then asked, would it be Trump? And then it said Obama. And then I said, are you sure is it Obama? And then said, no, it will be. So in American elections, right, the president cannot contest more than 2 times. So these are hallucination, which means it's not giving the right answer. What you could do is you could point the models, a foundational model, into a knowledge base. So you give it's something like in schools you use for Tamil a Konar guide. So it's nothing but it's a guide. So you read your textbook and then you use a guide. So it's nothing but that's your knowledge graph. So a lot of students in engineering, they used to have this Charlotte series, right? That's a mini book. So they will condense the main author. They would put it. So the main author would have close to 1,500 pages. And the Charulata series will come and write it for 100 pages, right? And people will study, students will study, and they'll create the exam. So it's more or like that. So you augment it with the additional knowledge support so that you can address hallucination. So these 4 things are very fundamental for any of the AI engineers to validate these models and proceed further. It plays a vital role. Without understanding these things, it is going to be very, very tough for us to do. I would advise the participants to go and quickly use that MSTY tool, whatever I said. You can use your Llama tool and then try out all these things. It's very straightforward. Or if you have a student edition of Copilot, you can do it within in your machine. The classic example is that you can have your own free tier SharePoint. You can embed some documents into SharePoint. You can put in your prompts using Copilot. It's very easy. I think Microsoft charge somewhere around 100 rupees if you want to activate it. And similarly, AWS gives it. You have to pay only $1. You can get a free tier. You can use your Amazon Q or Bedrock. You can store it in an S3 bucket, and then you can put in your prompt. So just ask for $1. It's 80 rupees. Microsoft charges 100 rupees. You can try all these things with no cost because the bigger myth is that you need to spend a lot of money for learning. You have to hardly spend 100 rupees. So that's less than you're having 2 cup of teas nowadays, right? So you can spend them. So these are the foundational, fundamental thing you need to understand to customize a foundational model or a fundamental model. So let me get on to the other one. The use case by use case validation. If you remember, I called out you can make use cases for your legal department, finance. So I'm just going to take you through one of the key concepts. So these LLMs or SLMs or AI is not silver bullet solution. Silver bullet is that. So you would have seen a comedy, right? One of the comedian would ask that he needs a tablet to cure all his illness. So nothing is like that. You can't have a panacea to cure everything. So you have to address problem by problem, use case by use case. If someone comes and says you that it would address everything, it's not true. Nowhere near to the truth, because as I said, the mortality rate is quite high. So you have to be very careful when you build an AI solution. So how do you evaluate a model? As I said, you don't need to do something from the scratch. That's the best part of using these models, especially the foundational models. So we call it as an FM. Using an FM, certain FMs are good enough that you don't even need to do any kind of prompting. So which is called as zero prompting, zero shot prompting. Directly, you can give it to your end user, ask some questions, it throws you an answer. Certain things are single prompt training. So you put in one prompt and then you allow the model to get trained and then it can give an output. Third one is multi-shot. When you want to do a complex, you get on. So normally to select a foundational model, I told, right, the India Mart and they used a Mistral or Llama 3. How did the technocrats really evaluate it? So these are so I worked for a few of the service companies. So normally the sales team will come us asking for a response for the proposals or response for the questions or queries. So we write a response. In the response, the major question is around the benchmarking. Benchmarking is nothing but how these models has been evaluated, how when these models behave when it has been stressed. You always know students perform very, very well in in-house testers. When they get into competitive exams like CAT, even at NEET, right? So that's where the stress comes into. People tend not to fare very well. I'm just going to quote one interesting use case. I had a chance to meet India's first individual gold medalist last week, Abhinav Bindra. So he was talking about the stress and how process helps. So stress. So in Athens, he went into the last round. He had 10 shots to be fired. If he's doing one decent shot out of that 10, he would have entered into the podium, either a gold or silver. So he said that he fired horrible shots of his lifetime. All the 10 shots were horrible. He has never done it. So that's what a stress can do. And he took that as an learning, right? And then he trained for the next 4 years in Beijing. So he would have, so people who watched that, so I had a privilege to watch. He would have been tied with, and then he needs to hit the target with one shot. So that one shot will decide whether he will get gold or silver. You won't believe he hit 10.86. That was a record at that point. So just think about the stress. 10, you need to get 1. He missed all the 10. Out of 1, you need to get a gold medal. He hit it. So that's what stress. So that's what these benchmarking do. So first one, Hugging Face is a fantastic place for you to go and check the leaderboard. You will see all the small language model, large language model. You can pick it by whatever that fits you. Second, as we call it as GSM, grade school mathematics. It's very simple. Your students would have been already aware. You would have taken up campus interviews. Whatever they ask is either a reasoning or a problem solving. Very simple question they would have asked. So you need to evaluate it. And third is multitask, as I said, from a language perspective, because people will tend to put in prompts with a vernacular format. Your model should be able to do. Then the long context. So we normally talk about long form. So I'm not sure how many of you worked in parallel processing of large data. big data. So normally we used to have key value pairs. So if you have used your Hadoop Hives, or if you have used large data in AWS, or even in your Postgre databases, we use a concept of key value pair. You will have a key. So things would be, the large data would be put onto chunks. You will have a key. The key has to match to a value. Very simple. Is that I need this fruit. Fruit could be a key, and then it is a pear or an apple. You map it, and then you take it. So we call it as a EMR. So that is your mapping. So key value pairs normally work on. So because you will train large data. Last is your RAG. It's a knowledge base, right? As I said, it will act as a guide. So you need to follow these key evaluation criteria for you to pick up a model. So think about it. When you choose a right model, majority of a problem is solved. Example, you take a Llama 3, you will have a problem because it is large language. Think about having small models. There's a lot of small models. You can take it from Hugging Face. You can get it from very basic 1 billion parameter. 1 billion is a big number already. You can pick it up. You can use that, and you can always try to do. If you need a analytical related solutions, you can do. If you need to have a classification, you can. Everything it does it, but it is purely by your use case. Now I'm again going back to your use case. So this is one of the classic example I saw with one of a trader, which is an Ananagan. So I know him for almost 30 years, since I started to get into schools where I started to use my cycle. He's been there in Ananagan. He runs a small shop there. And you won't believe he's in market still. And the shop is surrounded by a lot of supermarkets like Grace, More, Reliance. But he still caters to his customers. Still, at least for a week, every week, I visit that place. I buy something because he has an attraction. So he has a small system, computing system, right from writing into a diary, right? Then he moved on to small computers. So now he has a very fundamental AI model where he has collected. You won't believe he has a data for last 30 years, and he runs two shops out of Ananagar. He still runs it. 30 years. I've seen rest of such size shops has been closed. In Ananagar, you won't find a small shops. Hardly two shops are there in my locality. I've been staying there for close to 35 years now. I don't know. So he has mastered using data. You won't believe his customers will never leave because he is driving things to his data centric one. He knows what is Pradeep gets it on a Sunday or a Saturday. And I specifically go and get these millet powders. So he knows what I like. He keeps that on the table. Very, very. So he has a very elite customers like retired IAS officers, retired police officers. That road has a lot of people. That's the power of selecting. So this is a retail use case, right? You need to have your model, you need to have your prompts, you need to get a data so that it can act as a sledgehammer. I'm going to get into a couple of use cases next. So this is very interesting. You can find the power of AI with these kind of unique people that you see. So I call him as an automation anarchist. So he knows everything about computers. So he's very savvy, and he runs his own model. Unbelieving story. So that's how AI has transformed lives, and that's how you need to evaluate what you need to use. Right? If a small sequential model is going to help, go for it. Ultimately, it has to benefit you. Building a fancy toy which is not going to use, which is not being used by people, right? It does not add any value. So return of investment or how it is going to serve the ground reality is important when you evaluate. Quickly. So inference, it's a next step. Training is with your large data. You will be doing it as continuously. You will validate multiple data sets. Model inference is a new term. you do a bunch of training and then you make your model. When it sees a new set of data or unseen data, it able to predict. This is a meme, right? For media, everything is a sensational news. Whatever you give it, either it is an AI or nuclear weapon, they see it. For them, they need to cook up stories. So let me give you an example. So last session, I was talking about cats. You train a model for a computer vision. So you can use your BERT or VAT encoders. So you put in a lot of images and then you try to get some output. So I throw in a lot of cats, dogs. How inference works is, right? At some point, once you completed your training, think about it. You throw a German Shepherd picture, the model will give you an output. That's called as inference based. So training, you need to put a lot of effort into it, but you can put in your sequence and order saying that after some point of your training, things should happen as an inference. So inference is a unique power of right human being. So if people who are married, you know the power of inference from their wife. So they are the best person. I can quote it here. Is right. They know what is the next step in husband. So yesterday I came around 10:30 to my home. So I had went out with my office friends, right? So she called me at 8:30. I said that I will come in 5 minutes. So she was awake until 11. She knows that. So that's an inference, power of inference. For 5 minutes, for me, is 2 hours. So I'm just quoting it. Inference is that the power because you perceive the data set in such a way you can predict what is going to happen next. This is a fantastic one. Along with the customization, I would ask you to validate this. If you're able to do the inference on top of a training, then customization, already you can have your own model. So I saw somewhere in Surat, a 12-year kid was able to build her own model to help people to learn. And then you won't believe she has already started to earn in lakhs. I think last year she was able to earn close to 45 lakhs out of having that model. And you won't believe she has put part of the money to the charity and then she has made that as a free for people to use. That's a power how we can transform people to the next level. Getting on to the data management. So this is the core topic we were going to talk. So the topic itself was data management. Reason I went through all those things, right, without knowing that doing a data management is ridiculous, I could call. Because when you don't understand the foundational model basics, you can't get into it. Data management is a vast subject. Data management itself is an enterprise architecture subject. So it is a bigger one. So I've pruned it in such a way I can give you some key facets to it, saying that you have your model, very good. You've shortlisted your use case. You've done everything. You did your customization, blah, blah. You have everything. Think about it. You're getting a crappy data. Would you think your model will succeed? Won't. Fail miserably. It's a famous term called garbage in, garbage out. So whatever you feed, right, it's going to come out. You put in a crappy data, you get a crappy data. It's not going to help anyone. So let me give an example to you. So you want to, so you know how these university websites and all they work, right? On a day when people start to hit it, it fails. It's a classic example. I'm just trying to connect it. When all the million students try to connect to see their results, because they have not planned it. Similarly, your models fail miserably if you are not planning for a appropriate data to be sent into the model. So I know this is an example. I can't quote the customer's name, So they built a very sophisticated for one of the banks, very big banks, sophisticated system, and then they launched it for a very critical investment banking business. But you won't believe 95% of the traders said they can't use it. Normally, you will have a resistance, but this is a completely different one. The data sets they used was wrong because this market is a versatile market and it's a volatile market. The model was not able to put some exotic options. It was failing miserably because the banking models are liable to be presented to the auditors and to the regulators. It failed miserably. And a trader who worked with me, right, he's out of Singapore, he was able to simulate that using an Excel sheet. You won't believe, I and him simulated the model using an Excel sheet. So it happened a decade ago. Those days, AI was not such a prevalent. We never had a foundational model. It was a machine learning solution, which we put in along with some of the RPAs. It failed miserably because the data that they fit in was crap. Same model, we were able. So that trader was generating a revenue per month close to 8 million Singapore dollars. So he asked a question: do you want to jeopardize my business by using this system? So that's the catch. You put in a crap data, you get a crap. If you don't get the right instructions to train the model, you fail miserably. That we call it as a, in the digital environment, we call it as a dark data. You collect a dark data, which means you spend enormous time, you invest a lot of money in storing it, and when it is not fit for the purpose, it's a dark data. That's the garbage in garbage. So data quality. So any A to be successful, it needs to adhere to quality. Quality has 3 parameters. Completeness. Is your data complete? So you are expecting to have 10 records, it should have 10 records. You have 5 and you train, it fails. It is accurate. It has to predict something, right? The data. So classification. Let me take an example of classification. If you don't supply the right labels, it will give you a pretty straightforward output, which no one can use. Last one, if it is not useful, as I said, a multi-million product which was built has been dumped acrimoniously. So how many of you have heard about the Tamil famous anecdote? Uppulla the Purul Pandam Kupai, which means the food without salt, the porridge without a salt is going to go into the dustbin directly. It's going to go into the dustbin. Same way, you want to dump things into the dustbin. So when you do any data management, so a lot of you would aspire to become a data engineer. Please bear in mind. So I have one of my colleagues in the call. He's a data engineer. So it's for him also. The data that we ingest and then transform, if it is crap, get a crappy data out. Next is why things get as a crappy data is because people are not literate. Data blindness or data illiteracy is a bigger problem across the world because you have the infrastructure, you have everything, but people are not aware what that data is inferring. So one classic example, 3-4 years ago, I presented a dashboard at 3 different levels. I took it to the leads who run product control. Product control is important business where you do your profit and losses. I took them to that, and the same dashboard I took to market risk. It's a market risk specialist. And then I took it to the senior manager. All 3 had a different influence. Problem is, right, we made them blind. So one person was saying is that the model is showing 97% because you need to give it to the regulators. So it was saying that at risk 97%, which means there is a probability to have an issue. It's 3%. That 3% can give a severity of 100%. So people thought it's just 3% it's going to fail. No. This is how a data can make people blind. So the product controllers were saying, okay, we are going to only fail 3%. The market risk people are saying that, no, in that 3%, your severity is 100% because out of 100 samples, you're going to fail miserably. And when it went to the senior management, they had no clue. Okay, I see 95% is that I reported to the exchange. You say 97, it is good. But whatever a market risk analyst has said is right. The probability of occurrence is very high, which means the data that you submit is ridiculous. So that's how you can make people blind. That is, so what in the industry we talk about is right, having ubiquitous language. How many of you have heard about a story that happened in a Mesopotamian era? So people started to build a tower. They wanted to have the elevated tower in the world. People started to build. At certain height, they were able to understand each other because they were using a sign language. And then they crossed 20 foot, the confusion started. And when they went up to few hundred foot above, the sign language was not working. And one person was shouting because at that period there was no ubiquitous language. Still, we don't have it. At least we have interpreters. So one person said, throw the stone, and the entire tower was collapsed within few hours because the foundation what they put was not strong. They had a confusion because one person was saying that this is a brick, other person was saying no, I need a mortar, other person was saying no, I need a steel. So that's how you will be made blind. Your entire castle will come down. So you need to have common ubiquitous language from a data perspective. That is very, very important for us to have a success in the data that we manage within our entity. So that's we call it as a business glossary term. That is a pure English, you have to define it. And it will be converted into a technical glossary. It will get converted into a physical model. And that's how your database tables, your referential integrity, whatever you put it. It is very, very vital for you to have a clear-cut ubiquitous language or a common language. So otherwise, you will end up in having a data debt because you are not talking the same language. So for anyone to have a successful data management, you need to define what are the terms that you're going to use. So this is called as a metadata management or an information architecture. It's a very vast topic. Maybe in future, if I get another chance, I will only focus on this. This is one of my famous topic. I used to talk for hours and hours and hours. It's very interesting one, but I can't do it now. I'm just throwing a flavor. When you guys get onto a company, you will understand the importance. So you can go and evaluate a lot of products in the market called Alation, Nebra. You can go and type and then you can build in your own metadata management. It is going to be very, so the previous slide, how would you have a good data is with this. This is the key. So you have to categorize, classify your data so that it turns into a good data. And that good data has to be fed into the model. Then you do the customization, and then you train so that you get a fantastic model. So it's a reverse engineering. So last slide. This is the modern data stack which we are aspiring, which the world is aspiring to. So when you hit the market, when you go to the companies, especially a lot of startups and analytical companies, a lot of my friends who work in analytical company, I had a chance to meet in one of the NASCOM forum. Thanks for Kavya, Sushia. Yeah. couple of weeks, I met technocrats from the Tiger Analytics. Amazing work they do with the data that they collect. So this is out of my experience. This is how an architecture should be built. So you would have a data collection layer, that's a bottom. Then you would ingest data. Your data would be in multiple formats. It could be a structured data, right? From the tables, you will get it. It could be a semi-structured. You could get it from an XML or a JSON file. It could be a raw data, like a dump of unstructured DTD files, audios, videos. You have to curate it, or it could be live streaming. How you take it? So that's your components, right? Whether you store it in a data warehouse, you put it into a lake or a mart or a lake house, whatever you want, you can put it. A lot of things you can study it in the Google. I am not going to spend time. So this is the metadata, the semantics. You can use a beautiful catalog to say this is the data you need to look, and then you will have a processing. So you can do a Spark-based processing, SQL-based, and lastly, this is where you cater to your customers. Real-time data to the machine learning team. When this layer is failing, obviously you fail. When you fail in your ingestion layer, everything is done. So you are successful, you come into a storage layer, and still you are not having a semantics, right? You will fail. Processing, if you are not doing it appropriately, you won't give a good user experience. Think about it. The Anna University website, I said, a student wants to see the result, it will go down or it will be loading. So you give a very bad user experience. This is a mix of user experience, internal data management, data processing. So this is, we call it as a modern data stack. When a person is going top to down, bottom to up, we call them as a full stack developer. Full stack developers is not that they go program, no. Programming is just 15%. You can code with Code Whisper, AWS Code Whisper. You put a prompt, it gives all the code. ChatGPT gives it. Understanding the business is just 50%. A person who can explain what the user is asking is a real person who can crack business problem. So I stop here. This is a very vast topic. 45 minutes is very, very less. If you want some sessions in the future, and if NASCOM is happy, we can talk in more advanced one. But when we go on to that, I want people to do some amount of groundwork. We can take it as a kind of a workshop-based one. But I stop here. I open the floor for some questions. Happy to address.
I think there are a couple of questions in the chat. And any other participants, if there are questions, please raise your hands. You can drop your questions in Q&A or chat also if you are not able to speak up.
No problem. Can you please share any specific example with use cases? I'm not sure. I tried to address you with one of my investment banking consulting experience. I'm not sure whether that you are able to get it. The trader example. Maybe I can quote yet another example, which again I did it for one of the regulatory reporting. It's close to 7 to 8. So the topic that I spoke about is managing large data. If you think about it in a bank, it's not just a retail bank. How the bank operates is on a daily basis, you need to submit because think about it, a public listed company, very simple, a public listed company, which we are the investors, we buy equities from them. It has to follow some standards. One classic standard which has been asked is to do a mark to market. Mark to market is nothing but you would have an instrument with you. When you have purchased it, it would be $100. But the market is so volatile, every day it will fluctuate. Say 10, 15 years ago, it was not regulated well. So it is called as BCBs, Basel compliance. People never used to do it. So That's where the problem. So people will the market makers will inflate it. If you would have uh, read books of the famous market maker Jhunjhunwala, right? Rakesh Jhunjhunwala. So they make the market, and that post that there were a lot of things came as SOX complaints. So we need to submit these numbers. You won't believe every transaction that we need to do has to be reported to the regulators across the globe. There are some few things I'm going to call it out. It's called as PRA, that's from the England, and then CFTC, which is SEC, it is from Americas, and then in Singapore it is monetary authority. So all these places you need to supply data. What happened is, right, they collected this data, it needs to be presented in a format. So they give some templates. So they had an automation system which was not able to understand the prompts. Those days, it's not a prompt, is that you need to templatize it. So for a liquidity related model, you have to give it. What happened? The analyst has goofed it up. When the system from the regulator started to validate, everything got screwed up. The entire rating went down because of it, because it's fluctuating, right? When you report something wrong to the reporter, to the regulators, it hits your market. So what happened is that it was a tiny mistake when they trained the data. They did not put these instructions or the templates. So this is a 10 years old way of doing AI. So through a robotic automation, it failed miserably. When we tried to find the root cause, it was purely sequencing of the data. A small training mistake has incurred a huge loss. So all these things nowadays is easy to address. When you train, you can give instructions, you can give prompts. So this is the other example. So I'm not sure whether it answered the question. It was from Bhaskar. Second is Vignesh. Can we? I'm not sure. You can download it. It is a package. You can download it. It runs in Mac. It runs in Windows. I think there was a Linux package. Anything you can do it. It is purely GUI based. I tried it with my Windows one. Not sure whether it will run in the phone. Android, I've not tried it, but few people have tested it. Mobile version, you can do it. And shall we integrate with? Yes, you can integrate every output. You have to put a prompt. So if you go to ChatGPT's 50 quick hacks, yours is direct. So you need to ask how a PowerPoint can be created. So you need to put few of those embedding there. I've done it through a Power BI reporting. You can embed it, your reports will come. I've done it 10 years ago, you won't believe. I gave it to the regulators. Very simple. I had a SharePoint site. I had an Excel with all these macros. I had a small automation code, which I've written in JavaScript. I embedded into PowerPoint. Whenever the auditors refresh it, it would hit the code and then it would check into the SharePoint list and library. It will take those numbers. So automatically, because every week we have to submit to the regulators. So this was a problem which we addressed because the automated system we spent billions was not working well. So that Excel would be refreshed and automatically the PowerPoint will, whenever, so we put it a event-based one on a page refresh on and load. Whenever someone opens that PowerPoint, automatically it will be. So you can do it. It's very straightforward. I don't see there is a problem. If MSTO is not giving, there are a lot of plugins you can use. It's a very, very straightforward. You can export it. Excel, you can connect it to a PowerPoint. Or if you put it into a Power BI, you can connect it. Any way you can do it. It's a very straightforward asset. So Vignesh, tokens. Okay. David, tokens involve cost because we use a lot of freeware. We are not aware of it. So a GPT token cost close to 1 million tokens cost around 15 to $20. 1 million is both for input and output. So on average, it comes $20 for a GPT 3 to 3.5. What it means a token, you go open your chat GPT, you type something, right? You type 100 words, it is equivalent to 125 tokens. You exhausted already. and the output it comes close to 1500, which means you're already exhausted 2000. So 2125 is 2125 tokens you have exhausted. So which means, think about it, 15 of your friends you hit the same time. You have already exhausted close to 200,000. Another 100 people, your 1 million token is exhausted. Think about it when you put it into an enterprise, right? How many people would be using? So tokens play a vital role. That's where the prompt engineering comes. So your token, the input that you give has to be very precise. As I said, who is the president in 2030? You will have hallucination. And this is a bigger problem. When you go into a GPT-4 based, it is much more costlier. It comes triple the amount. It comes for 1 billion token, $90. So it is one of the tough one. And then to maintain the servers, it's not easy. So you will have GPUs. It's nothing comes for free. Maybe when we try it for free as an end user, they give it. But internally, for the corporates, they charge heftily. That's one of the reasons where we be very, very mindful putting the data and taking output of this. So hope David, I've answered your question. I think we are 12 o'clock now. If anyone has any question, you can do it, or you can always reach out to me, Kavya, and happy to respond. I think that's it from my side, Kavya.
Okay, Pradeep.
Further questions.
If there are any further questions, you can please feel free to write to us. I'm just dropping in our emails. Um, Thank you so much again, Pradeep, for this session. And with this, we are actually closing the data analytics topic. In the next train the trainer sessions, we'll be coming up with some other topics relating to cloud, cybersecurity, and so on. So please watch out for our emails and hope to meet you again soon. Thank you all for joining in, and thank you again, Pradeep and team, for putting up this 2 sessions for us. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
All the best for the students working. So wish you great success. Let's make A everywhere. So that's the phrase that we use for the very best. And thanks NASCOM for this. It helped me to learn a lot of things. I learned a lot of things yesterday personally. I was preparing the pack only yesterday night. So it was really a good 2 sessions. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and we really love to hear more feedbacks so that personally I can also improve. Thank you all.
Sure. Thank you so much.